When you think about the narcissist and what they are really, you have to come to the conclusion that a narcissist or somebody with a personality disorder is nothing more than a destructive attention whore. Now, attention whores are bad enough, but the way the narcissist goes about their attention whoring, it becomes destructive. Destructive for years, destructive into your adult life if you've been around them. And that's really what I want to talk about in this video, is the destructive attention whoring that I dealt with growing up and how I'm at this point now, and how continuing to be no contact brings more and more of this to light and more of this to the surface for me to understand and to look back at and to ultimately laugh at. So, attention whoring of the narcissist. Now, as we all know about my family history, my mother is, and we've all heard her by now. I think everybody's heard the phone call from Narcissistic Mother. If you haven't, go back in my folder and check it out so you can hear her for yourself. You know about my narcissistic grandmother, my mother's mother, Virginia. And you know about my father. And you know somewhat about my ex-wife. But really the focus on this video, and I think it'll probably make some of you happy, a lot of you happy, is there's going to be some Virginia Vault in here. And really I want to focus on my mother and her mother and the attention whoring of that side of the family and what they've done. You know, the first real, and this is going to get kind of graphic, so hold on to yourself. You know, the first real evidence of this attention whoring, and in my family's case, it's to shove something in your face and to make you feel uncomfortable about it as well. It's also that boundary stepping. And some of you may have this as well. So, the earliest is that I can remember is I'm 7 years old. I was 6 when my brother was born. And I had mentioned earlier, it was after my mother gave birth to my brother that I knew, as I think back, and she was always nutty, but it went to a different level of crazy after my brother was born. And my mother always had this thing about being naked in front of you, walking around in her under. As an adult, she would continue to do this. But I think back, she's always been like this. Because at 6 years old, after my mother gave birth to my brother, it was my job to look up my mother's ass at her hemorrhoids and tell her how bad they were and count them and tell me how many there were. I'll let that sink in for a minute. And we're back. So what she would always do was, every time she took a bath, she would call me in there and make me look at her naked body. This happened all the time. But after my brother was born, I guess one of the side effects or after effects of childbirth is hemorrhoids from all the pushing, which is fine, it's medical. But a 6-year-old shouldn't know that. And it certainly shouldn't be the 6-year-old's responsibility to look up her own mother's asshole while she's like spreading her fucking ass apart. Counting hemorrhoids. It's a good thing I could count, right? But you see, it didn't end there. If you think, oh, maybe she was postpartum, yada, yada. Now, mind you, she was always walking around naked, and anytime she was in the bath, she would make me come in there and basically see her naked. It was, this culture that was being built around me at a young age. So after looking up my mother's ass for about a month for hemorrhoids and whatever else, affliction she had, always seemed to be with her asshole, though. I always had to be checking in there. Surprised, that Christmas I didn't get my own little miner's helmet with a little light on it, just checking up mommy's ass. If I was a good son, that's what I would have asked for. I think I asked for a bike that year. What a dick. So, I guess it was a couple months later, but within a short period of time, I had to hear all about the ins and outs of tubal ligation at 6 years old. And in layman's terms, it's having your tubes tied so you don't have any more. So you don't have any more kids, and so, I would have to hear, they're going to put me under, they're going to do this, I'm not going to have any more kids, so me and daddy can have sex without kid. That's what she's telling a 6-year-old. So she goes, she has the procedure, she comes home, and whenever anybody on my mother's side of the family has any type of procedure, and I'm going to get into this in this video, oh my God, it's the procedure to end all every time, and because they're Rampo women, that was her maiden name. So if a Rampo woman, I can't be, because the other two sisters aren't like that. It's my mother and Virginia. Oh my God, these two have something. Oh, the moaning, the groaning, and I'm sure there's tons of you who know the moaning and the groaning and the histrionics behind it. So, my mother had the procedure, and then she'd had it like 3 days prior. And I remember I had asked her something, and she went into the bathroom. I asked her to go somewhere. I'm like, can we go to I don't remember where it was. I asked her to do something or to go somewhere. And immediately, as soon as I did, I'm like, oh, this is a problem. I shouldn't have. And I hear her go, and I hear the bathroom door shut. I'm like, uh-oh, here we go. And then she calls me, Matthew. And I remember it, how she used to, Matthew, like that. And you'd always try with the what, maybe just if I say, but no, you had to come like a dog. I come in, she turns around, she's wearing her robe. She's like, you want to go out after you know what I went through with this procedure? And look what they did to me. She then proceeds to rip open her robe and to show me her shaved vagina. They shaved my vagina, and I had to lay there while they... And then she proceeds to sit there and while yelling about her shaved box to a 6.5, maybe 7 years old at the time. Look at it. Look at it. And I'm like, because I've had to see her fucking box every day for 6 years anyway, because she made sure of it. So I knew it was like, I'm like, well, now what? You don't have hair anymore? And she's like, that's not the point. It'll grow back. 6 years old, in the middle of the bathroom, getting yelled at over my mother's shaved fucking box. Now, this behavior, the nakedness, that continued throughout. I could go, if I really thought about it, I could remember things, and she was always naked. Up until I was 30, it's like when no contact. The last time I went down to their shore house, everybody has to yell at her, put your fucking clothes on. She'll just walk out, floppy old lady, titties in a bra and fucking bloomer, just a slob. She has a thing with watching people watching her piss. That's why she would open up bathroom windows. So there was a bathroom window at their shore house where if you go up the stairs, you could see the person on the fucking ball. And that woman would open up them every time and say, oh no, this house is special because it gets cross ventilation if you open the windows. I'm like, you get cross ventilation windows. Every house has one. But in the narcissist mind and crazy mind, they can make up whatever. They make up whatever rules they want. They throw it at the wall, hope it's the cross ventilation. Okay, for what? For a bathroom with one? No, you just like to watch. You like to shock people watching them sit on the fucking bowl. That's what my mother's about. To the point where one of my brother's ex-girlfriends said, "What's with your mother in that bathroom window? It's disturbing." You said it. You said it. But all this really starts with Virginia and my mother's mother, and her sexual inappropriateness and, the fights they would have over who's sicker, who's going to die first, my mother and my grandmother, and even all the sisters. But my grandmother was exactly like this. Exactly like this. The history on it, she was always dying. My grandmother was dying since the day I was born. She died when I was 33. So for the 33 years I knew her, she was dying. She was dying. Every time you called the house, hello, the moaning, the groaning. Neighbors used to catch her sitting out on she would look for neighbors coming home. You would see her looking like this for the neighbors. And as soon as she saw the neighbor, she would then sit in a chair on her front porch and start moaning. The neighbors just started ignoring her finally. That was at the end. She would do that. When she got really desperate. The first time I brought my ex-wife to meet her was after my grandmother had open heart surgery, because she ate like an animal for years. Like, she ate fat. Like, she was an animal the way she ate. She's like, I can't believe I have to have open heart surgery at 70. Well, you've eaten nothing but fat and shit for 70 years. Like, how you haven't had a heart attack before this time is astounding. So at 70, she had to have open heart surgery. And when I brought my ex-wife home to meet my mother, she's like, well, you gotta take her over to see Virginia because she's sick and this and that. And fine. So I bring my ex-wife over to meet my grandmother for the first time. First time my ex-wife is meeting her. And I tried to warn her, this could be ugly. We'll see. So we walk into the house, we go upstairs to where she is. And she was sitting in her chair, chair of misery. Because whenever she sat in it, it was just misery at all times. Misery. Oh, Matthew, they cut me like a chicken. Look. She rips open her fucking thing to show me the scar, titties akimbo. And then that's not good enough. She hikes up her fucking skirt to show, because they had to go and do a vascular thing in her leg too. And she whips it up above her fucking vajay, and there it is. Oh, and here's my new girlfriend, Grandma. I'm sorry she met your vagina and your titties before you actually spoke to her, but hey, if there's ever an accident where only your titties and your vajay are identifiable, and she'll be able to identify at least, So good looking out on that. It's like a control thing, They love to do it. My grandmother was another one. They'd argue about anything. And I remember once I was laying on the floor at her shore house when I was a kid, and I was reading on the floor. And my mother and grandmother were having a fight about something stupid. And I'm laying on the floor, and my grandmother walks over, puts one leg above me, and she's wearing another one. She's wearing a robe. So it's like it's a Rampo thing. I guess it's the robe. Stands over me with the robe and is yelling at my mother as I'm looking up at my grandmother's fucking vagina. And I'm trying to move, and she's moving with me as I'm like, and so I'm like, she wants me. Oh, I was like 8 or 9. And I finally just sat up into her room. I'm like, move. And nobody real, like, everybody's just sitting there, and it's unreal. The things you have to endure. Because it's a boundary issue, it's a control issue, you know, they know what they're doing. And my grandmother would do it to everybody, because my grandmother is, and I'm afraid this is probably my mother too, because my mother's a dick grabber. My grandmother is a notorious titty grabber, especially on her 2 daughters. And to show you, if you reject the narcissist and giving them what they want, you get the rage. You see, my mother's other 2 sisters are both nurses. Her middle sister, my mother's the oldest, her middle sister is actually a nurse practitioner. She's basically a doctor. And the other one is I can't remember the name of it, but she does radiology. She's a radiologist. She's a radiologist. And she does ultrasounds for pregnancy. So they're both highly medically trained. And that following, it was either Christmas or it was Christmas, because it was at our house. It was at my parents' house. Fight breaks out. There's my mother and Barbara, the middle one. You're going to look at this, and I'm going to, what the freak? And there's my grandmother standing upstairs with her shirt open. Why will my daughter look at my scars? Look at it. Look what they did to me. Look how sick your mother. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Because the other 2 daughters want nothing to do with it because they know what she's after. But also, what my grandmother would do is she would compare her, like, weight was everything. So she would compare herself to the other 3. I weigh less than you. I weigh less than you. She compared her weight to my aunt's, to the one daughter's weight, my Aunt Ginny's weight, when my Aunt Ginny was going through chemo. So I'm still skinnier than you. Yeah, that level of insanity from Virginia. But what Virginia would like to do is, she'd like to grab, she wanted to see your titties, and she wanted to see your body, because it was all about, you know, body comparison. That's why my mother says, when she first met my guy, I have a much better body. And it's the same thing. This was my fear of my mother around my daughter, because if she does what Virginia did, and no boundaries, and my mother has no boundaries, my daughter's going to be groped by my mother. I know it. And what Virginia would do, and she would come out and know, and the daughters would know when she was up. The other 2 would know, and they would be like, don't touch me, mother. But here come, oh, that shirt doesn't fit. And then she would come and grab you and grab your tits and adjust your tits. And just to feel her daughter's tits. She did it to I've heard she did it to other people. I know she did it to my ex. I hear this is a very popular thing to do with women on women, with narcissistic women on women. And, you know, when I look at my mother did the same thing, but she did it with my fucking dick. Always grabbing, and it's the same mentality. You see, the way I look at it, my mother really tried to looked at me like a daughter almost, like as competition. Odd. I had a very odd being a boy around her, and with the background, her growing up with all women, and It's attention whoring. And it's destructive. Because when you don't feed into it, that's when you get the narcissistic outbursts. When you don't give in to their attention, you get the outbursts. You know, Virginia threw herself, you know, years later. It might have been one of the last Christmases I was actually attended that Virginia was alive. Because at that point, she wasn't even really allowed to come to Christmas. Nobody wanted to. But Barbara, my mother's middle sister, tried to make the effort. And she was complaining at Barbara at the diner, and Barbara's like, "You're healthy as a horse." And that's when Virginia threw herself over a railing at the diner and tried to say Barbara assaulted her and took her cane, kicked her cane out from under her, and beat her with her own cane because Barbara wouldn't give in to her narcissistic supply, wouldn't give in to her attention whoring. Me. I'm sicker than anybody. I'm dying. You know, I'm dying. My mother's been dying since I was 10 too. My mother's been dying since I've been 10 too. Always some ailment, always something, always some reason to look up her ass or in her fucking cooch or whatever. It's continued for years and years and years, and it continues to this day. And I fear for my daughter, but I call it out. You know, everybody's aware. Everybody's aware of this channel and my family at this point. So, you know, and including my daughter is aware of it. So, if she ever does get Grit, she knows to call me. She knows to call me. So, with that, I'm going to wrap up the video here. And thank you for all your comments and your subscriptions. Please subscribe if you haven't. Feel free to share any of my videos anywhere you like. The word's getting out. Let me know what you think here. I'll talk to you all again real soon. This is Ollie Matthews, and thanks again for watching. Take care, everybody. Bye.